Hey kiddos, it is time for another math video. We are in module 6 now and lesson 3. The objective, as always, at the bottom of the page, we're going to name points using coordinate pairs and use the coordinate pairs to plot points. So we're going to be working with this fun little coordinate grid that they have given us. And you will need a ruler for today and possibly a different colored pen or pencil to make your work kind of stand out. I found that that really helps when these gray lines are dark. It kind of blends in with your pencil and you can't really see. So we're jumping right into the drawing today because so much of what we do is on a grid, and it wouldn't make sense for you to make your own grid just to practice. So we're going to try to make the most of our time to do all the tasks that they tell us. So let's start. Number 1, use the grid below to complete the following tasks. Construct an x-axis that passes through points A and B. So x is always on the bottom, and therefore we're going to use our ruler to draw a line that goes all the way through. Now you're drawing a line on the line. That's the part that I was talking about, where if you have your pencil, you're going to want to go over it several times. And if you're sure that your line went right through the exact points, you can go over it if you're sure you're in the right place with a pen, because it will stand out. And then we're going to label this X. Okay, so I'll try to do the Y more on the video so you can see, but you want to really put your ruler right there through the points and on the line. Okay, and I'm going to have to move my book up and down a lot so you guys can see what I'm doing. Construct an x-axis that passes through points A and B. Did it. Now we're going to construct or build, big fancy word, but now you know what it means, a perpendicular y-axis that passes through points C and F. Here is C, here is F. We're going to be making a line right through here that will go all the way down through these points and through the x-axis. Okay, hold your ruler steady and it can pass through. Mine is just to the left. And if it's a little bit off, you can go over it again so that it's a little bit wider. It's kind of a weird angle for me. Okay, so make sure your line is on the line and it passes through C and F, and then label it Y and put a little arrow at the end. Don't use permanent marker because it will go through your page and then it'll bleed through on the back of this page, and you don't want that. Okay, so let's do C. So we've done this, and now we're going to label the origin as 0. Okay, this is the origin. So put your 0 right out here in this little spot here, so it's out of the way of your coordinate grid and all the action that's going to be happening over here. Check that off. Every time you do something, just check it off. It'll help you keep track of what you're doing, what you have left to do. The x-coordinate of B is 5 2/3. So down here, here's B, that's 5 2/3. You can label it, and you can do this in pencil. Label the whole numbers along the x-axis. So along this bottom line, you have all these little gray lines. Okay, now every time a line comes down, they're counting by something, but you don't know what they're counting by until you get a set number, and then it's like, oh, well, what do I do from here? If this is 5 2/3, then 5 3/3 would be here, which is essentially 6, because 5 plus 1 is 6. That means that the 3 is telling you, the denominator is telling you how many pieces per whole. So this would be 5 1/3. So this would be 5, right on the line. So every third line represents a whole number. So 6, and then 2/3, 1/3, 5, 2/3, 1/3, 4, 2/3, 1/3, 3, skip, skip 2, skip, skip 1. And then if you want to see the fractional numbers, you can have like the 2/3, 1/3. So you find your pattern, then you label the whole numbers. And you should end up with the very first line after the 0 is 1/3. Check your numbering. If your numbers are off at all, it's going to mess up all the points in your graph. So make sure that you are counting by thirds and that it's exact and precise. Precision is mandatory in graphing. Okay, now we're going to do the same type of thing for the y coordinates over here. C is 5 1/3. So 5 1/3 right here on this line. Now notice that it's 1/3, not 2/3. So here is 5. Label the whole numbers along the y-axis. So again, the denominator tells you how many fractional units you're counting by. If this is the whole number, this would be 4 2/3, 4 1/3, 4. Again, the 2/3, 1/3, 3. Skip, skip 2. Skip, skip 1. And then this is again down to less than a whole, 1/3, 2/3, 1. So you can just kind of, sorry, that was off the camera. Down here at 1, and then 2/3, 1/3, and make sure that everything goes out exactly like matching. Okay, so 1/3 and 1/3, they cross here. 2/3 and 2/3, they cross here. Okay, and so on. So your numbering is just so important. Now, I'm going to have to keep going back and forth, but we're finished with this. All the rest of the activities that we do with this on the next page. So we're going to flip back and forth, and I'll try to make sure we're always on the right section, page, so that you guys can see. For all the following problems, consider the points A through N on the previous page. Identify all of the points that have an x coordinate of 3 1/3. Now remember, with coordinate pairs, what that means is if your x coordinate is 3 1/3, we have to go to the x coordinate of 3 1/3, and then the y could be anything. Okay, but we need the x to be 3 1/3. So let's identify all the points that have an x coordinate of 3 1/3. Go back, find x, go to 3 1/3. That's here. You can label it if it makes you feel happy. And notice that there are several points on this line. J, I, H, and D, all on this line. Okay, so we're going to write those letters, D-H-I-J or J-I-H-D. In any order, doesn't matter, okay? Now we're going to identify all the points that have a y coordinate of 2 2/3. It can be any x, but we have to have 2 2/3 for y. So in the same way, okay, in the same way, anything for x, okay, but for y, it's got to be 2 2/3. Okay, so on the side, 2 1/3, 2 2/3 is right here. So that means, and this will focus momentarily. Thank you, my sweet iPad. Okay, so all of the y coordinates are right here on this line. Remember, graphing is all about following the data that's on the line. At least in 5th grade, everything pretty much sticks to the line for the most part, almost all the time. Okay, F, E, H, and K. Okay, and next one. I hope this doesn't blur out every time I turn the page. That would be annoying. Which point is 3.5 units above the x-axis and 2 2/3 units to the right of the y-axis? Name the point and give its coordinate pair. So we have to give the letter, and then we're also going to have the coordinate pair. You can set it up with your x, y values and then get ready. Okay, so we want 3.5 units above x. Now, if that's telling you how high you're going, that's the y value. If it's 2 2/3 to the right of the y-axis, it means we're going out from the y-axis, which means you're following the x coordinate. It's kind of annoying that they present it like this, but a lot of problems will do that. So it's literally kind of giving you the opposing number order because they're using those little prepositions, like it's this much above and it's this much from or this much to the right. So they're giving you directional clues. Okay, so if it's 2 2/3 to the right of y, then that's the x. And then if it's 3 1/3 above the x, and that's y. So it's 2 2/3 and 3 1/3. So 2 2/3 and then 3 1/3. And if you follow that back, that would be point G. Okay, so fill in the blank, and that's point G. Now, which point is located 5 1/3, here's that preposition, from the y-axis? 5 1/3 from y. 5 1/3 from y. So I have to go look at y and then go 5 1/3. Doot, 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 doot. Here's 5 1/3. You can label it just to clarify what the crossing point is. Now follow up. Bam. K is the only point on that line. So point K it is. Okay, that's for D. E, which point is located 1 2/3 units along? Here's another little preposition. They're trying to give you directions. 1 2/3 units along the x-axis. 1 2/3 along. 1 2/3. Here's your 1, 1/3, 1 2/3. You just want to label it and check it, and then you say which point? Well, only one, and it's M, point M. Okay, now this part, I'm not going to put this in for you, so you're kind of expected to understand these will go on the line because we're giving the coordinate pair. So you just have to put the parenthesis and then a comma and a parenthesis, and that's how you're going to write your coordinate pairs. Let's go find point K. K, where's K? There's K. So K is out here, and what you want to always do is use your X. I see it's blurry. Please stop. Please stop. Oh, thank you. That's slightly better. Slightly better. It'll probably focus when I turn the page. So K, you want to always follow along the X first. So you go all the way out X, and you see that it's 5 1/3. Go up to K. 5 1/3 is X. What's Y? 2 2/3. 5 1/3, 2 2/3. Okay, so that's your ordered pair. If your parenthesis is too smushy, give yourself some room, like mine. Just erase it and fix it. Okay, point I, same thing. Always X first. So point I. Here's I. Go to your bottom line. I feel like it's going to blur out every time I turn the page. So we're at 3 1/3 here. That's the first one. And then this one, if you don't have it labeled and you want to count and make sure, it's counting by thirds. This is 1 1/3, then 1 2/3. I is 3 1/3. 1 2/3. 3 1/3. 1 2/3. Parentheses. Okay? B. Point B. Now B was one of the ones we first put our x-axis through. So we know that we have to travel on x, but we do not have to travel on y. So the x-coordinate is 5 2/3, but the y is 0. So 5 2/3 and 0, because we do not go up, we do not go down. There's no up or down for y, so that's why the y is 0. Then point C is up here. That's the other one that we used for our graph to set it up. So this does not go anywhere on the x-axis. So for this one, the x is 0, and then we go up to 5 1/3. For y. Okay, so record that. Now, this is the opposite, and yet we're still using our coordinate pairs. We're going to find the points this time. So now it's like reading a map. 1 2/3 and then 2/3 for y. 1 2/3 and 2/3. 1 2/3 and 2/3. Okay, that's point M. X first, then y. Point M. Next one, 0 and 2 2/3. 0x, that means don't go anywhere. And then 2 2/3 for y. So up, up, up. 2 2/3. Point F. F. 1 and 0, whole numbers. Easy to remember. 1 and 0. Okay, go for 1, and then we do not go up or down. That's point A. Point A. And then 2 and 5 2/3. 2 and 5 2/3. Up, 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 all the way up here. Look, we found a point, and we don't even have it labeled. That's okay. I'm at 5 1/3 here, 5 2/3 here. That's point N. N. Okay. Next one, which point has an equal x and y? So that's going to be, okay, when you're going out equal directions, it's going to have this diagonal that goes right through the middle. Okay. So equal x and y. If it had both 1/3 and 1/3, it would be here, or equal here, or both 1. So we're looking at a point that would go straight out through the middle of your graph on the diagonal. And if you hold your ruler up, you'll see that way out here is L. And L, if you follow it down, it has 5, and then go back this way, and it has 5. So which point has an equal x and y? It's L. And you can even put what the coordinate is just to show how awesome you are. And you could put that it's 5, 5. Okay? Give the coordinates for the intersection of the two axes. I don't even have to turn the page. That's not a graphing question. It's a knowledge question. The intersection of the two axes, that's at 0, 0. And another name for this point is the origin. And again, you should memorize that. You should remember it, know it. Now you get to put points on the graph. Plot the following points. Plot just means like draw. So find their location and draw them. We're going to put point P at 4 1/3 and 4. 4 1/3. And then 4. Up, 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 up. Use 2 hands for this if you can. Okay, and put a point there about as big as the other points, right at the intersecting point of these two lines. Okay, so it's 4 1/3, 4. This is 4 1/3. Up, 4 here, and this is point P. Notice that these are all sort of down to the lower right, so just put your label in the lower right, just for consistency. Not that it super matters, but just do that. Check it off when you're done. Next one, 1/3 and 6 for point Q. 1/3 for X and 6, boop, 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 way up. 1/3, 2/3, 6 is going to be here. And this is point Q. Again, to the lower right on 1/3 and 6. Check. Okay, next one, 4 2/3 and 1. 4 2/3 for X, right here. And then 1 is, remember, 3 up. And this is for point R. 4 2/3, 1 for point R. Label the letter. And then the last one, 0, 1 2/3. 0 for X, 1 2/3 for Y. 0 for X means don't go forward. But 1 2/3 for Y is up here. 1 2/3. And that is point S. Again, to the lower right. Don't make it look like a 5. And check. Okay, back over here. What is the distance? Oh, this is going to be, there are some distance questions in these, and you're trying to go from point to point. So what's the distance between E and H, or line EH? Distance between point E